What's up, Trust Engine and Mortgage Coach community? I am interviewing Ryan Grant. I've interviewed Ryan a number of times. He's been an iconic top producer, very well-known leader in the mortgage space, now leads a mortgage platform, co-creator of Neo Home Loans. And I'm doing a series of interviews called Purpose and Profits, something that has always been very important to me as a business person. I've been a for-profit entrepreneur my entire adult life, but I'd say for the past 20 years, 2 decades, I've been a very on purpose, mission driven for-profit entrepreneur. And now I'm leading a for-profit, innovative company in the mortgage industry where I'm the our chief innovation officer for Trust Engine, but I'm also running a nonprofit and with Kristen Messerly and Todd Bookspan. And I want to interview people that I think are both purpose and profit driven leaders in mortgage, and just hear their thoughts on how they balance those two things and how they think about it. So Ryan, thank you, brother, for joining one of these interviews in this series.
Man, it's an honor. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me, man. Excited for the conversation.
Yeah. So first of all, when I say, purpose and profits, and I talk about you, like, how do you see yourself as a purpose and profit entrepreneur and leader?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was listening to you speak just now about your career and your path, I have not always been this way. It was, when I first started out in the business, I was $80,000 in debt. My house was $300,000 underwater. It was a rough time when I really started my mortgage career, which was like right around 2011. And initially, I didn't have really mentorship or guidance that helped me see the bigger picture, right? I was focused on finding loans and funding loans and doing a good job and building my business and earning a good living and building a team. And it wasn't really until I hit a certain point in my career or the evolution of my mortgage practice that I realized I didn't have the fulfillment, right, that I really was looking for, because the money problem was solved, right, and the accolades and the doing X number of loans was solved. And when I realized that there wasn't a whole lot of fulfillment in that, and that I'd kind of lost inspiration, it was clear to me that the fulfillment I needed was more external than internal, right? It was more around, the impact that I could make, or the lack of impact that we were making. And it was really around 2018 when I got really clear on what my purpose should be, and how I believe the mortgage industry should act. And that, for the last almost 6 years now, has really been a passion of mine, and it has reignited my inspiration. And every day I'm really excited about the work that we're doing. And I talked to a lot of mortgage professionals, especially in the last 6 months, that a lot of them are just honest with me. They're like, look, I've kind of lost the fire. Like, it's hard for me to do the things. It's hard for me to really, do all the things I used to do at a high level. And I'm struggling, and I don't know where to find, like, kind of rekindle that inspiration. And so we talk a lot about why they're doing it, and what their experience has been. And oftentimes when I get them to anchor into a different purpose other than their production and the money that comes along with it, you can see that flame reignite. And that's really fun for me to help people get to that place.
It's interesting. I've done a number of these interviews, but something I think super interesting and powerful just came out, or at least something that I got clear on. Because, by the way, I wasn't always this purpose driven dude either. I mean,
Yeah.
For my first part of my career as a mortgage professional, I mean, it was all about closing loans. When I founded MortgageCoach, it was just a conversion tool. How could I win trust and respect at scale with advice, convert, win, be as successful as I could be.
Yeah.
And it was 2008, kind of like middle of the meltdown, coming out of the meltdown, where I wasn't killing it with profits, but I formed this, like Mortgage Coach, and what I'm doing, this could reshape how people get into debt. And, that is my destiny. And then I, became purpose driven. And I think it was more of just a self-help strategy. so that I was, self-help. But then I guess it's been 15 years now, and, profits and purpose and profits. And just anyone listening to this, think about that, where you're at in your journey. And it's okay. This is no judgment. If like, hey, I'm pure profits, and, and that's, we're not here to judge. I am here to, like, let's find people that are very purpose driven, very mission oriented, who are also profitable and successful. So that's cool. Um, so, so when you think of where we're at right now, it's 2023. Like, I think it's a massive, like, there's been a sea shift in mortgage. And I do think a loan officer needs to become an advisor and needs to deliver, you know, value. They need to help people make better decisions.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly when real estate commissions are going to change, but I interviewed Mitch Kiter yesterday, and everybody I talked to is like, it's going to change, and the change is going to have happened by within a couple of years. Like, it's not going to take a long, like, everybody's like, this is going to happen faster than you think.
Yeah.
Talk about purpose and profits for both mortgage and real estate industry going forward, and your perspective on it.
Well, I think we just need to take a view of the consumer, right? Because for a long time, we've always viewed our industry through the lens of what does a real estate professional do? What does a mortgage professional do? Right? How can we do it at a high level? How can we lead generate at a high level? How can we convert at a high level? How can we maximize, profitability, run a good business? And in doing that, we kind of lose sight of the problem. And I think that this, the NAR lawsuit that we're seeing is kind of shedding light on that. Obviously we went through this back in 2009, 2010 with Dodd-Frank, but if we put our scope or our lens through the perspective of the consumer and just ask, well, what is the consumer not getting? What is the consumer, where are they lacking? Where are their challenges? Where are their struggles and frustrations? What I've found in a lot of research and a lot of conversations with my past clients and the people that we've interacted with is that they don't want it all to be on them, right? They don't want to have to come up with all the ideas, right? They don't want to have to have thought about buying or selling a house. They don't want to have to figure out, how much they should put down, or if this makes sense, or if they should do it now or later, if they should buy investment properties, like just the entire kind of holistic real estate and financial world that they have to understand or figure out. They would much rather have someone help them with that.
Right.
But to this point, our industry has very much not embraced that. Right? The only thing we've
Right.
embraced is once they've decided to buy, sell, or finance a home, then we'd like to be there. We'd like to be their chosen provider for real estate or mortgage. And that has to change, right? Like it not just for us, like it definitely should change for our industry, but it has to change for them, because think about what someone has to go through right now. Right? Imagine
Right.
owning a home in today's world that you've lived in for 6 or 7 years. You've outgrown it. Your kids are bigger, or they moved, or that life has happened, and you definitely want to change. You have to figure out, okay, well, if I sell, what do I do with the money? If I buy, my interest rate is going to be way higher. What's that payment going to look like? What should I do with all the money? Do I put it all down? Is now a good time? What's happening with my parents and children? College education. Do we really believe that the average person has the financial acuity to work through that?
Right.
And if the answer is yes, we're mistaken, right? So I think that we all know the answer is no, which means that that's our opportunity. We get to step in and help them. They get to see us as somebody who is not just a provider of a mortgage or a provider of a home. They get to see us as an advisor proactively that will guide them through every phase of their life. And that's why I'm just, this is not Dave didn't ask me to say this. This is not a plug, but this is why I'm really excited about the Borrower Intelligence platform, because, our commitment is to proactively help our clients, towards a wealthier, more financially free future, right? Like that's really what we're trying to accomplish. And with data and with information about our clients, we can be more proactive, right? We can be more on the front edge of advice and guidance, as opposed to reactive when they need something, typically because something happens in their life. And so when I think about purpose, it's, our success has nothing to do with the amount of loans we fund or the money we make. Our success
Right.
ultimately should have everything to do with how successful our clients become because of
Right.
the advice, guidance that we've given them in between transactions, before transactions. The transaction actually should be the easiest part.
Right. You know, you make a good point, and I want to make sure people listening to this take this, that as mortgage professionals, if we go be, and it's a simple, and I think in almost all cases, when you think of purpose, and where is the line between a loan officer, a realtor, and someone that has real purpose, that creates change for consumers? It's as simple as beyond the transaction. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and how far do you go beyond the transaction? Like you and I both, um, we believe the same thing, and we have for a long time in our careers. Even
Yeah.
before you used MortgageCoach, you always just believe like, hey, I need to show people, the value of home ownership over time. Like, hey, here's your
Yep.
rate, and this is what it's going to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and I'm your lender for life, and I want to deliver services and value as often as I can, over the course of our partnership. So that is the difference. Now, by the way, is it that simple? Is that the dividing between purpose and just being an operator, whether it's a realtor or loan officer? It's going beyond the transaction, showing value, or is there more to it?
I mean, there's a lot more to it in terms of like understanding holistic personal finance, right? Because you can't really be that valuable if you don't understand. Like if I'm asking you, Dave, if you're a client of mine, right, my goal should be that you call me and you just, hey, Ryan, I was referred to you by so-and-so. They told me that you've been really helpful for them and their family with real estate and finance. And I should reach out, and I wanted to just share my situation and see what your thoughts were. Like that's the future that we should work towards as mortgage professionals or as real estate professionals, which is that people don't come to us for the transaction. They come to us for the guidance. And it just so happens that when we ingest all of your information, that then we can guide you to, okay, you need to do this, just simple checking and savings tweak, right? Or insurance tweak, or, making sure that you have a estate plan, will, or trust, or making sure that you understand retirement in your current path, and you know what to do with your parents and with your children so you can plan intergenerationally. Like as mortgage professionals, we need to just raise the bar, right? Like, because that's who I want to get my mortgage through, right? As somebody who is fully aware of every time a decision is made in real estate or mortgage, how the ripple effect impacts all those other areas. Not that we need to
Right.
sell those other products, right? But we need to be aware of it, because when I close your loan, Dave, that just means you own a home at that point.
Right.
And I personally don't believe that that is really helping people. I believe that the help happens the 30 years after, because that is way more impactful to someone's life than the 30 days leading up to the closing. Right. And so that when I think of purpose, I think of, well, if my purpose is just to close a loan on time with good advice and good strategy and, good customer service, to me, it's a little empty, right? Because I don't know what's going to happen to that family afterwards. And the afterwards is the longer part and the more meaningful part, right? And that's what I want to lean into and say, like, look, I'm going to commit to helping you in ways that you wouldn't help yourself. And to me, that's exciting, right? Because I get to look back on my career and see the impact I made, not just because of the loans I've closed, but the general advice and guidance I've given. Like, I'm going to help you plan for your next transaction and your next one and your parents' next one and your children's next one. Like, I'm going to be a part of the things that you wouldn't have done without me. And I get really excited about that.
Yeah, no, that it does. It's very energizing. Mortgage professionals and realtors that are playing that game show up with more energy, show up with more confidence, and create more tangible value. And this is where I get into the profits with everyone, is that I have found, the loan officers that do that and have those more valuable conversations, they're more successful. They have a higher conversion
100%.
rate. They have less price exceptions. They get more referrals. And when I say more referrals, it's not just more referrals from past clients, but realtors see them as a more valuable partner and they give
100%.
them more referrals. So to me, that being this purpose, driven entrepreneur in mortgage is highly, highly profitable. And I do want to make sure in the delineating difference, it's how much education and inspiration are you giving beyond the transaction? Are you
Yeah.
giving people
Until the next
options?
one.
Are you,
Yep.
yeah. And if you're not, well, let's shift a little bit just because as you know, and you're an ambassador involved in First Home IQ.
Yeah.
I am very proud of what we're doing at Trust Engine and how we're leveraging data. We're being more predictive so that we can help consumers even before they know they need help and they have needs. And then we're automating advice. So like it's incredible work.
Huge.
But I also think, we need to get to the next generation. And not only is it like a purpose and a mission, I do feel like, hey, they are a huge segment of future buyers, both millennials and Gen Z. What are your thoughts on First Home IQ, and what are your thoughts on how important it is from a purpose and a mission perspective to invest time and money in that next generation versus focusing on move up buyers and folks that are just
Yeah.
moving up?
To me, I don't see a delineate. I don't see a difference because ultimately, whether you're helping someone after a transaction or before a transaction, you're still helping them towards what's next.
Yeah.
Right. And so what's next for someone who is, 18 years old, who's graduating high school, who may go into the workforce, who may go into, a higher level education, they need to be planning in the same way that a move up buyer is planning, right? They need a plan. They need a strategy. They need someone to advise them other than self-help on the internet. Right. So to me, that's where we're going to make a real substantial impact. And, we see it every day in the news and in the articles around, hey, the younger generation's never going to be able to buy a home. And they've just essentially wrote it off that it's not even a possibility because it's so unaffordable for them. Well, I felt that way when I graduated, right? And I'm sure my parents felt that way when they graduated. I'm sure everybody at some point felt that home ownership was beyond them. But with some advice and some guidance and some hand-holding and strategy, it really isn't, right? But we can't expect people to self-help their way to a better future. It hasn't happened in the past, so why would we expect it to happen in the future?
Yeah. Although I do think there are more people, and it is a bigger hill of affordability, and we need to get to them younger. Like it still shocks me that in high schools and colleges, we do not have systems where people come out of institutional education and they understand money and they understand how to achieve home ownership. It just seems like America would be better off if we formalized that. Like, hey, we live in the modern world. Money matters. Let's make sure that you know how to do more than balance a checkbook. Which I don't even know how many people balance checkbooks anymore. I know that people
I
do
know that's
it,
the thing.
but I'm not doing it. And how to manage money, how to save money, and how to achieve home ownership and financial freedom. It's just it should be there. Now, one of the bars I'm trying to raise is, okay, you got to be a mortgage coach. You got to be a data-driven mortgage advisor. But I also want to push the industry. I think that the mortgage industry can be first responders to this financial literacy crisis and actually go into high schools and colleges. And that's what we're doing at First Home IQ. Any thoughts on that? I know Josh has really embraced it, and I think he's done some some training and some financial literacy training. What are your thoughts on that, and what are your thoughts on just turning the mortgage industry into a first responder to help get after this crisis?
Yeah, I think the whole concept is around redefining what a mortgage professional is, right? And what better place to start than the future customers, right? Because for the last 80 plus years, all people have known of the mortgage industry is when I need a loan, I need to find a low rate and low cost. Like if you could literally go online right now and put in how to find the most valuable mortgage professional, right? Or how do I become a successful homeowner? And the internet doesn't know what these words mean, right? So it's just 30 pages of rate, cost, rate, cost, rate, cost. So we've done
Right.
this to ourselves. So guess what? The only way that we get to undo it is to get to the future of the industry, which is high schoolers, college campuses, and say, what you first of all, you probably don't even, like, I didn't know what a mortgage was when I graduated college. I had to ask when I
Right.
first heard about the industry. But when you are starting to plan, you need to reach out to a mortgage professional as early as possible. You get free advice and guidance and strategy and planning and tools, and they'll put you on a journey from where you are to where you want to go. Right. And all this is no cost. Right. But
Right.
no one knows that now. No one ever thinks, man, I'm thinking about buying a house. I wonder if I can. I wonder if I should. No one ever thinks, you know what, I'm going to call a mortgage company. They just don't think that, because they don't call us until they've already made the decision, and they're, typically pretty far down the line. We need to make sure that people know you need to start that day one, like as soon as the thought enters your head, or even before, right? Like, I've heard about buying a house and I know you guys help with that. What do I do? Where do I start? Awesome. Happy to help. Whether they're a month away or 10 years away, as mortgage companies, we need to have the ability to give them a journey and a path to day one.
Yeah, there is no doubt about that. Now, when you think of the purpose you'd love to see in the mortgage industry and the legacy you want to leave behind in the mortgage industry, what is that? What do you want to, like, whenever your career is done? Obviously, you want to be highly successful, highly profitable, uh, you know, create generational wealth for your family. But what do you want to see the industry look like at the end of the mission you're on?
Yeah, one of the first things that, you could call this a kind of a small thing, or like, not super significant, but I think that the way that we, quote unquote, rank mortgage professionals needs to change.
Mm.
Because right now we think, well, the best mortgage professionals are the people that fund the most loans. And I fundamentally disagree with that. I believe that the best mortgage professionals are the ones that provide the most value. And so we should, and what we're doing internally with our group is we're creating a world where, through our app and our financial services app, we can see all of our clients' net worth. So we can see it on day one, and then we can see it again, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So what I would love to see is that the mortgage professionals who create the most, like the largest percentage of net worth improvement, those are the mortgage professionals that are on the top of the list.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. So really, um, growing the consumer net worth. That I hadn't thought of that metric. One of the things that I would like, I mean, and again, I'm a for-profit entrepreneur, but I'm also now a nonprofit
Yeah.
entrepreneur. And so I'm always balancing back and forth. But at the end of the day, if you don't create profits, even if you're a nonprofit, if you don't create revenue, you can't make impact. And so the mortgage industry right now, when they scorecard loan officers, it's how many loans did you close, what your volume is, and there's always this, well, I did the most volume, well, I did the most units, and to me, I'm like, well, you know what? Whoever has the highest conversion rate is delivering the most value, because like conversion and consumer value go hand in hand, and whoever has the least price exceptions, like, let's face it, like if you are um, having a lot of price exceptions, you're not delivering as much perceived value, and they're looking at you as a price, not as a lifelong partner. So I've always felt, and then customer satisfaction scores. Uh, like, what if we, I've been doing these Moneyball mortgage interviews, but what if
Yeah.
we started playing Moneyball mortgage and scorecarding, conversion and production matters. Like, let's face it, someone that's doing 2 loans a month, 3 loans a month, it's hard. By the way, I'd love to hear your number. I've always felt like If someone's doing 40 to 50 loans a year, you can get really great. Like that is a benchmark of it's enough volume to deliver an incredibly valuable experience. But if you don't do a certain number of loans, can you really be great at it? First of all, thoughts on the whole Moneyball mortgage piece, and then also I'd
Yeah.
love to hear what you think that minimum volume standard should be.
Yeah. A couple things you said there will I'll weave through in my answer. But the first thing is I think that there is a substantial difference between production and performance.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot of people that produce a lot of loans, but that doesn't mean they necessarily are performing at a very high level, right? In all the areas you said, and all the metrics that you said, right? In margin, in conversion percentage, in post-closing viability and value to the consumer. I think that the performance of a mortgage professional far outweighs the production. It just so happens that that's all we look at, right? And you mentioned something about price exceptions. If you're the lowest interest rate, right? If you're the cheapest interest rate in the market, because you've taken your margins down to razor thin and you're trying to do a ton of volume at very low margin, that is a business model. Unfortunately, I believe it's the business model that the majority of the industry is trying to go to, which is, well, we just need to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and have lower and lower margins and help more and more people. I think that is wrong for everyone. I think it's inappropriate for the consumer because they don't actually need, no one's become wealthy or changed their generational wealth profile by saving a quarter point in their mortgage. Just has never happened. Right? What they need is a team of people who are going to give them advice and guidance and planning and be proactive and help them, but they just don't know that's a possibility. So of course they're going to want the cheapest rate. So I think that really analyzing okay, well, not only how much am I producing, but how well am I performing? And that leads to your last question, which is, how many families do you need to be serving per month as kind of a jumping off point to where you can build a great sustainable business? I've seen people start helping 2 or 3 families a month, but the key is, where's the margin, right? Because if you're, if you're helping 5 families a month or 10 families a month, but you're on that razor thin edge, you can't reinvest back into the necessities to really help them, right? You can't invest back into the technology that will help you create trust and value at scale. You can't reinvest into a support team that helps you help more families. You can't reinvest back into marketing so more families know who you are and what you do. Right. And that's the conundrum in the mortgage space right now, is that people are like, well, I want to be cheaper and I want the lowest rate. And it's like, okay, you can go be the cheapest in the market, but you're only going to help a certain number of families. And you're going to tap out there because it's just the economy of scale doesn't work. So what I'd rather see is, sell a rate that is appropriate and competitive, but also gives you the margin as a business owner to reinvest in your business so you could help more families. Right. And that's the fine line that most people are really trying to figure out right now. And I would just encourage people that higher margin is not a bad thing. Higher margin means that you get to add more value to that client's life. And yeah, their rate might be an eighth or a quarter or so higher than the cheap guy, but watch what you're going to do with that family's life versus the cheap guy and see which one feels better to you.
Yeah, no, you can do good for people and really do well for yourself. And
100%. Right.
but
Do well by doing good.
Yeah, but it's all about going beyond the transaction. And Trust Engine Mortgage Coach is like, hey, within the transaction, hey, here's advice to make better decisions. And then leveraging data so you can be more predictive and be at the right place at the right time to help that consumer over
100%.
time. But I also really want to push the industry. I think by going into high schools, colleges, you can do that is how we're really going to solve the financial literacy crisis in America. It's got to be like multi-generational, and we need to get to the next generation. And I do think there's enough loan officers in the country, where we're the ones, like, every time someone runs a credit report, for a mortgage, we are there to learn a lot about them. We have their assets, we have their liabilities, we have their credit, we have enough data and enough attention of theirs that we could give financial literacy beyond just pre-qualifying people. So Ryan, any closing thoughts? Anything you want to make sure within this, purpose and profits conversation that gets out? Like, we're going to have a lot of mortgage executives watch this. We're going to have a lot of loan officers. We're going to have some new LOs. We're going to have some experienced LOs. Probably a lot of people at Neo. Within this conversation, anything you want to close out with?
I think the title of this interview in this series of purpose and profits really needs to be analyzed at the base level of the meaning of those two words, which is, if your purpose is to impact the largest number of families and help them in a way that our industry has not previously, right? And that you really have a purpose of impact, of effect on that client's life in a way that is more than just giving them the mortgage they would have gotten anywhere. The result of that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because by doing good, you enhance your profits, right? Because you're essentially selling a different product at that point, right? Like if a lot of our people at our team, when a client comes back to them and says, well, I found so-and-so and they're a quarter point lower, their response is, oh, well, they have to be. I'm like, well, what do you mean? It's like, well, of course they have to be a quarter point lower. Like, they're not even selling the same product as we are. And the client's like, well, explain that more. And it's like, well, we've talked about helping you before, during, and after, and here's what we do. They don't do any of that. You're just going to get a mortgage. So, and then the client, you get to open up their scope of vision and they start to see, oh yeah, that's different, right? This is something different. So by doing good and offering what the client genuinely needs, right? The purpose part of this conversation, it enhances profitability, which allows you to then repurpose that profitability into more opportunity to do the same thing. Right? And I think that as an industry, we need to stop the race to the bottom. Right? We need to stop how can we not talk to the client? How can we let them, click a few buttons and get a mortgage? How can we just, reduce as much cost as possible and not pay for advice or guidance and just let them self-select a mortgage? The same way that they get a credit card online, they should get a mortgage online. That is a recipe for disaster. There is maybe 1% of America that would be appropriate for, right? But if you don't have a family office or a group of people that are committed to helping your family, you need us. Key is we need to be different, right? We need to think differently of who we are as mortgage professionals. So I'm super appreciative of you, not only for putting together the, MortgageCoach and the borrower intelligence platform and all those things, because I think that will help us automate some of our best intentions, right? That Kelly Yale, a close friend of mine, she says it all the time. Like, we need to be able to automate our best intentions. And your platform has done that in a really substantial way. And it allows us to be more of what we want to be to more people at scale. So I just appreciate you putting it together and appreciate the time today. It's always fun.
Yeah. Hey, before we go, because that you have some good ones. You guys have become a borrower intelligence platform client, and we had that introduction call with your Salesforce yesterday with all your loan officers, where we announced coming soon in January, and you had automate best intentions. I just wrote that down. I will be using that. And yesterday you also shared this. Hey, the data is out there. People get it. It's, we're using it for good. Would you mind just kind of sharing your, everyone's got the data. It's a question of how you use it and your data for good. Not necessarily repeating what you did yesterday, but that was, you really had some great closing thoughts. Would you mind closing out on, why you guys have been, from your position, have become a borrower intelligence client and your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was funny because, when a lot of our team and our whole company, we've used the Sales Boomerang platform for years. And as new people come to the organization, or as people that are in it are kind of analyzing it, they think of the term like big data as kind of a big brother overseer, kind of creep into people's lives situation. And I just wanted people to know that, like, data will be used 100%. Only question is it going to be used for good or bad? And we've seen the dark side of big data in the mortgage space for way too long, right? People trying to sell cash out refinances to people don't need it. Selling 15-year fixed loans with 2 points because that's the only rate that would make sense to lower their rate. Selling credit card debt consolidation, like there's so many companies out there that are looking to take more than they give. And so if we get to play the data game the same way that these large companies get to play the data game, we just get to play it at our scale. We get to do good with it, right? We get to be a source for good. And it's not just like signing up for it and pressing the button and thinking, okay, I'm going to get all these alerts and the world's going to be easy. We need to combine that with our unique nature of connecting with people, right? So like we're talking to them consistently about, okay, what's your plan? What's your goal? What's next? What are we going to do? What are the issues? And then we combine that with the data that we know to really give good advice. Otherwise, we are going to, we're going to think we know everything because we have the data, while actually missing a lot of stuff, right, in that family's life. So we have to be able to combine kind of the ethos of who we are with the data of what we get. And I think that marriage is just going to be not only incredibly valuable for us, but we're going to be able to guide people through the changes and evolutions of their life in ways that we just wouldn't have been able to do before. We wouldn't have had the information, and we would have missed it. And that information other people would have, and they would misuse, right? They would try and use it, again, solely for profit and for their betterment, not for the clients. So I think it just gives us a massive superpower that we're excited about.
Yeah, data for good, automate your best intentions, and automate for financial freedom. We have two hashtags at Trust Engine. One is no borrower left behind, and that one is really our message for the industry. Like, you've got all these folks that you've done loans for that they're either not doing the loan they need to do, so they're getting left behind, or they're leaving you. And if you are someone who really delivers great advice, they're not getting a better deal. And then for the consumer, it's financial freedom lending, and to really help consumers understand that when you borrow money, always be thinking about how is this going to help me achieve financial freedom faster. And is, so it's, you're always looking at transaction and financial freedom, and you're looking those at the same time. So Ryan, dude, you're a true pioneer in advice in the mortgage industry. I appreciate, both having you as a customer and one of our first borrower intelligence client customers, innovators. So thank you. And then, you, Josh, and lots of the professionals over there are ambassadors for First Home IQ. So I am super grateful, and I really enjoyed this conversation, man.
Likewise. I appreciate you doing this, Dave.
All right. Take care, everybody. Hopefully you got value from this. And if you are not already following the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel, subscribe today. Take care, y'all.